Welcome, Whiniacs, Wisdom Wanderers, anything else that starts with the letter W that can help my alliteration. I am Matt Kane, and I'm joined by one of my wonderful, great and wise, powerful, omnipotent friends, Melissa Tompkins.
I'll clap for me too.
Melissa, how are you? And welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm wonderful. There's a W word.
Yeah, wonderful.
I'm wonderful.
If this is your first time, this is our second episode, so it could be your first time or it could be your second time. But we drink wine and we talk about life, and that's really all you need to know. Okay? That's really all we need to know. This week we got started a little earlier because somebody wanted to drink a little bit before the show, so we didn't. This is not the first pour, and it probably won't be the last. But we're drinking Rex Goliath. Look at that shit. So let's talk about Rex Goliath. I mean, actually, let me talk about this first because I'm bad. I'm really bad at promoting. You can check us out, Kane Action Team on YouTube, all over social media. Also, check out the podcast Wine and Wisdom wherever you get your fine podcasts. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're checking it out on YouTube, but you can check us out on Spotify. You can check us out on iTunes, Anchor, all over the interwebs. Leave us a rating, subscribe, like, all that fun shit. All right, that's out the way. Rex Goliath. Let's talk about Rex Goliath here.
47-pound what?
At the turn of the century, HRM, His Royal Majesty, Rex Goliath was a treasured circus attraction, weighing in at 47 pounds. I wonder how many stone that is. Rex was billed as the world's largest rooster. It's a big cock, huh?
I was wondering when that was coming. I knew it.
Yeah. Our wines are a tribute to Rex's larger-than-life personality with his big, fruit-forward flavors, sure to please, bulging with tumescence, and vascular... No, I added that. But I do like the line, sure to please, from a cock. Our Red Moscato is the king of sweet, with majestic jam and strawberry punch flavors.
I feel like I need to channel like my inner teenage boy right now.
Best served chilled or ice cold. Enjoy this delicious wine alongside your favorite fruits or cheeses.
We've not chilled or
We did
iced
not.
it.
I didn't know we were supposed
It's
to.
still pretty good.
Sorry, Rex. But you're but look at this guy, man. Check it out. I'm not going to hold it up to the camera because that's just dumb. But Rex Goliath, this is a Red Moscato. And it is refreshingly sweet, as it says. It says, where is this brewed on? Go to rexgoliath.com. There you go. Rex, sponsor us. I'll drink this shit. I'll put that cock in. But anyways, this is
47 pounds. You better learn how to unhinge that jaw.
and lots of lube. Anyways, imported and bottled by HRM Rex Goliath Winery in
Where's that?
Acampo in Madera, California.
Ooh, I want to go.
Yeah, let's go.
I've never been to
this, we're outta
California.
here.
Bye.
But this, so yeah, there you. But it's a product of Chile, 9.5%. So let's do it. Let me give you some. Oh, how'd some already get in there? Holy
Thank
shit.
you. Whoops.
And then let's my pour. Do you know what ASMR is?
I do, and I love it. Do it. Do it. Come on, baby. Do it.
Whoa.
No pressure. No pressure.
You know, we were talking about before air. We were talking about Sir Mix-a-Lot. Baby Got Back, right? And
Sound check.
Yeah, during sound check, which was
Oh.
exquisite. But anyways, there's a character that reminds me of what's the brother's name in Frasier? You watched Frasier?
Not really.
The nerdy brother.
I mean,
right?
I know who you're talking about, but
So
no name.
There's a character in the music video when there's a big old ass in his face, and he's like, you know, like, oh my god, you know. That's what, when you said that, I'm like,
Is that really how it works, though?
yeah, I don't know.
Is that what ass does to you?
I guess he was like, well, it's the
You
line
start,
like,
like,
you get sprung. And
tweaking?
He's like, well, no, it wasn't tweaking. It was like he went like this. He had a suit and tie on. And he kind of goes like. Ooh.
I kind of remember that.
I'll play it for you later. Maybe I'll put it in the outro. But anyways, Here we go. ASMR.
Okay.
Oh shit! I spilled some. I gotta wipe that off my crotch. Hold on. Go ahead, talk, Melissa. I'm not using that. Melissa's like, what the hell is going on here?
I need content before I can just talk.
I got that cock in my crotch. All right.
This is madness.
Now
It's
it
madness.
Now it just looks like I pissed myself. But anyways,
That's okay.
let's drink a little bit of the Rex here. Cheers.
And to you.
Look at that. The monkey and the dragonfly kissing. I love that mug, by the way. That's great.
You know who got this for me?
Somebody that our listeners won't know.
Yeah, someone you know.
Lisa.
Yeah. Yes, very
But they
good.
don't know who that is.
Yeah, but you do.
Valid, so.
Is this conversation for me and you or
Okay.
for the world?
Everything.
For both? It's all the same.
Exactly.
It's all the
Thank you.
same.
Everything we do is for
In and
everyone.
out.
All right,
Up
here we
and down. Within, without.
go. So,
Let's pretend this is our first taste.
yeah. I think it's pretty good. I don't really like sweet. That's not like too sweet. It's like just enough sweetness.
I kind of think it's perfect.
kind of. And I'll tell you what.
I think 47
I
pounds might be a little too much, though.
Yeah, I definitely taste the strawberry.
I taste grape.
How's the bounty? Aren't you supposed to like go
And like swish it in your mouth, and yeah, I'll make a mess.
and go? I just remember the scene from. You ever seen the movie House Guest with Sinbad?
I don't know.
Well, anyways, there's a scene where he kind of crashes a wine tasting party, and yeah, it's just funny. There's like one guy that's like super. So add that. So the two things I got to show you afterwards.
Okay.
Add that to the list. All right.
And the rest of the documentary.
And the rest of the documentary on Bikram on Netflix.
Fucking
Watch
pervert.
it. Oh my God. Speaking, how about that for a transition?
Whoop whoop.
Bikram yoga. Melissa is a yoga teacher, but Melissa, really, aside from teaching yoga,
I'm gonna take a deep breath. This
I
feels-
shouldn't say aside from teaching yoga.
In addition
And by the
to-
way, again, wine and wisdom. We talk about all things in life that can make you wise. No topic is off the table, so to speak. Again, the point of this show is just to have good conversation with good people and learn from each other, but also to really get deep and to kind of meet what I like to say is meet behind the veil. You know, like we live our lives with these facades up, and it's just like, how are
masks?
you? How are you?
You mean
yes.
masks?
How is the weather? How are the how
Don't
is
give a
sports?
fuck.
You know, like
Yeah.
and you know, there's different levels we live on, and I get that, and I can meet on that level, but to meet another being behind that with taking the mask off. And sometimes when they take that mask off, you're like, whoa, put it back up, put it back up. But other times you're like, fuck. Like, they take the mask off, and it's like a mirror. You know? That's what I like. So anyways.
That was beautiful. I love it.
Let's talk about yoga. You are a yoga teacher. How long have you been involved in the yoga world?
Oh, geez. About 5 years. I'd say 5 years. I started researching how to heal from certain things, and yoga and meditation was something that I could do for myself.
Yeah.
Versus seeking help outside for healing from some traumatic things.
And you own a wine studio?
Wine studio?
Wine. Oh, my God. Wow. Rex got me. No, you own a yoga studio?
Kind of. I did. And then, yes. I mean, yes, I am part owner of a yoga studio. Was a sole owner of a yoga studio. I opened a yoga studio in 2018 and then acquired a partner, and now she is running the shit at the bigger studio.
And you're welcome to promote that on here if you want. Cause
our yoga
that's kind
den.
of what I was getting to.
I almost brought my yoga den Yeti and stuck it here, but I
man,
didn't want to be super cheesy. But yeah, the yoga den is in Norton. It's beautiful. It's
Norton, Ohio?
in Norton, Ohio, in the Acme Plaza. It's 1,300 square feet, and we have all COVID protocol in place. It is currently operated by my business partner, Shelly, and she is an advanced nurse. She's a CRNA. So for those of you that don't know what that is a nurse anesthetist. So she puts people to sleep for a living, and she makes
the big bucks.
She has all of the safety measures in place at our new space. And it's a beautiful space. She's decorated it beautifully.
Yeah.
She's very good at what she does. I'm very lucky to have her. Yeah, so there's my shameless plug.
And you can find more at the yogaden.
Ohio.com.
I'm sorry.
yogadenohio.com. Yeah.
Link will probably be in the description and all that fun stuff. Yeah, and I've personally have dabbled, I would say, in yoga. But we can get to the term yoga. We'll talk about that in a second. But the physical act of yoga.
The postural calisthenics.
The postural calisthenics of yoga. I've dabbled. I enjoy it. I know I went and did some classes at the yoga den and enjoyed it.
The little den.
The mini den.
The original, the OG den.
The OG den. And I did. What pose was that? And I put it all over my social media.
You did a couple. You did.
All I know is it was very difficult and it required a lot of upper body strength and focus and dexterity.
And I promoted the shit out of your body. I'm like, look at what I can teach you. It was the flying pigeon, I believe.
Yeah.
Either flying pigeon or flying lizard, something like that.
I want to say lizard because lizard sounds better than pigeon. Sounds more. But I think it was actually flying lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool. So speaking of yoga, what is yoga?
Ooh.
I know, right?
Woo!
This is where it start to get deep.
Straight for the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
What is yoga? Are you asking me to define the word? The concept of yoga? The word itself? What would you like to know? That is such a broad question.
I know.
Woo! Okay, so I'll go real basic here. Yoga means connection. To connect. So the root word of yoga is yuj, which is Y-U-J.
Not huge, like as in the.
Not huge 47-pound rooster.
Yeah.
No, huge. Y-U-J.
I'm gonna move a light. Don't you keep talking?
No, you're fine. So what? God, I don't even know which direction to take with that question. I'm gonna need a little more direction. So just.
I mean, if you hear me say,
yes,
what is yoga? What does that mean to you?
Well, what does it mean to me?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I mean, because in my vague understanding, I have heard the term yoga just meaning union, right? And
same thing as connection, yes.
Yeah, and there are different yogas. There's, and you can speak to this more than anybody, but the term yoga has been adopted in the West to specifically mean the postural calisthenics. Like that's what in pop culture if we understood yoga, that's what it is. Right?
I believe that's the package.
That's the package.
That's the package yoga is sold in.
That's what it's sold.
Yes.
But that's like this much of this much.
The poses or asanas are kind of like a gateway to a deeper inner practice.
It's right. Like using those postures to get further, to awaken, to get to God, right?
Yeah, so that's one. Yes, that's a good way to look at it. For me, I need to pause and collect.
Take your time.
Collect.
I'll give you a quote that I heard recently about yoga. Is they said every posture is like shaking hands with God.
Interesting.
And I found that so deep. And we'll get to God later, what God is. But yeah, when I heard that, I'm like, man, and then it's like you can apply that to anything.
Well, I would instead of referencing the postures as a gateway to God, I would reference the breath or prana because I've heard the expression I thought was really beautiful. When you inhale, you take a step to God, and then when you pause with that inhale, you're conversing with God, and then when you exhale, you're sharing what you attained on that inhale with the collective, which is you reflected. But your original question you asked me is, I had an answer, and then we.
I'm sorry.
What is yoga to me?
Yeah, what is it to you? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I love analogies, and I love to explain things with analogies, but to me, yoga is your life. And when you say you're getting on your mat to practice yoga, it's like practicing a day in the life of Melissa or Matt if you're on your yoga mat. I don't use a yoga mat anymore, so.
You're more connected to the earth?
No, it's not even that. It's just I like my bare feet on the stone or the wood floor.
Oh, I feel that.
I feel like the mat kind of messes with any kind of magnetic connection you might have with your feet.
Yeah.
But, and the mat is limiting. I believe. But I understand the concept of the mat. If you're going to a studio with a bunch of dirty feet and dirty hands, you have a mat. You have your space. It's your own space cut out in the world. So it's not a bad thing. It's just this is your space. For me, as a guide, I prefer to view myself as a guide more than a teacher because I'm not teaching them something. I'm not giving them something that they don't already have.
Right.
I'm guiding them to themselves internally so that they can meet God on where they are. And I don't even like the word God.
Yeah, well,
But to answer your question,
yes.
What is yoga to me? To me, yoga is life, and it's just like anything else. For me, yoga was a teacher.
Right.
The concept of yoga, I'm not saying I'm stepping away from it, but the concept of yoga for me was a way for me to discover my like infinite, not potential, but just existence as a being. Like yoga led me to myself. Yoga led me to understand a lot more about life that I didn't understand. Yoga led me to heal a lot of fucked up synapses in my brain. That was my original journey to set out to try to gain some type of control over my experience in life and my own reality. And when you short circuits connections in your mind that you've formed in a conditioned way and you short circuit them and you rewire, it's a fucked up process because emotionally you're going through all of these things and it's like this, not a battle or a fight, but you meet yourself on so many levels and you realize all of these things you're meeting were never you. They were all something that was given to you and told that you were.
Right.
So when you ask me what is yoga to me, it's so hard to even put it in a box because it doesn't exist in a box. To me, it's when I say union or connection, the traditional definition of yoga, or the traditional practice, I should say, I'm going to use the wrong word, but it's okay because I think my point will come across the way I'm trying to get it across. Traditionally, yoga is you are a soul, an individual soul expressing itself here.
Right.
The practice of yoga connects you to what is larger, an oversoul. But even that, when you put it in a box like that, it's like saying that you are separate from what is over you and you are not.
Yeah.
So that's when meditation truly begins.
Right.
Enlightenment begins when you realize that you are controlling your reality. You get to paint it. You get to decide the type of reality that you what do you want to experience while you're here? That's when yoga really begins. So the practice ends and life begins.
Yeah. I love that. I love that definition. I could even extrapolate that to like other things as well. Like
Did you say extrapolate?
Yeah, I did.
I'm going to chalk that up to my vocabulary
Okay.
now. I'm going to look that up later. I think I know what it means. That was super sexy.
Wait.
I'm just puffing you up. I'm being honest.
Like Rex, 47 pounds.
I'm being honest.
No, what I was going to say is I could extrapolate that to, like, for me, martial arts was a gateway to that. And I loved all the physical aspects of martial arts, but when I really started getting deep into martial arts, like in my late teens, a lot of it was for the deeper meanings, the philosophical underpinnings. This is why I was so drawn to Bruce Lee. And what people, I think the people that really have a deep understanding of who Bruce Lee was get it because he was a philosopher more than anything else. And what he said is in martial arts, like, on the journey in martial arts, you come up against obstacles and barriers.
Ooh.
Whether that's an opponent.
I was just thinking about this today.
Yeah, whether that's a move that you're having a difficult time with, whether that's yourself. And ultimately, it all reflects back to yourself.
Yes.
So what he said is when you overcome that obstacle, that barrier, whatever, and sometimes you don't overcome it, sometimes you have to find a way around it, that there is deep insight there. And it's you're learning about yourself. It's a mirror to reflect back on you. And when I understood that on this meta level, I was like now it's like,
totally
oh my God.
Fucks with you.
Now it's like, oh my God, like I'm not just throwing a punch. I mean, I am, but I'm throwing a punch at myself. Right? Like how? And see, that's where, like, you can get really deep with anything. Like you could play music, you could, any endeavor could be that. Any endeavor could be, whether it's playing the flute. Like I heard another quote that is like, if you take it to that level, it's like you're playing flute to God and everybody's just listening in. You know what I mean? Like that's so. I love that. I love that definition of yoga, and that's kind of how I understood it. I don't like the watered down, westernized. I mean, that's what everybody does in the West. Is like, how can we put a stamp on it and make money off this bitch? But then it loses its real merit.
I struggle with that at being part of a studio.
Yeah.
However, on the flip side of that, there's definitely something to be said for people looking for guides and it having its place.
Yeah.
And taking that role, taking that responsibility seriously when people come to you for guidance. It's not fucking about you ever. And I'm constantly removing myself from the equation. And it's hard to do, especially when it's so validating when people are coming to you for something.
Totally.
Like it's, okay, you have to shut down this desire to perform or this desire to gain validation or this desire to say or to think, look at me. Yep. And I'm not even saying that that's bad. I'm just saying it's a slippery slope.
For sure.
It's a slippery slope. And then the exchange of money is a slippery slope with the spiritual concept. So I've wrestled with that a lot lately. Honestly, like last year I wrestled with that a lot, especially with having a studio and not caring about profit. And you have to, when you have a business, you have to care about money. And
that's always been a thing. I've never been, and a lot of people that know me know that I've never been like money guy. Like, don't get me wrong, everybody likes money.
It's energy.
I look at money as freedom credits, like to do shit. But,
yes.
But it's never been the motivating factor in my life.
I can't
clearly, if you've seen the card, right? But
I cannot get motivated by money.
Yeah,
I can't.
It's hard for me.
Yeah.
I'm always, my motivations have always been meta, but then it's more like, well, I know how money can help me get to that as well. And it's like hierarchy of needs too. Like obviously you have to satisfy, the base level. Because I'm gonna be real with you. When I was in my early 20s and I was so dejected, I got out right when I graduated college. I'm like, what do I do with my life?
Yeah.
And I thought about actually going. I had one of two options I was considering. One was I was gonna join the Peace Corps to just go to
I considered that too.
To go to I really want to go to a really poor Latin American country and stuff. And then the other thing I was actually thinking about going to an ashram over in India.
Isn't it crazy how we wrestle with saving the world versus saving ourselves?
Yeah.
As if it's something separate.
Right? Ultimately, I didn't do either, but I've always been like, my main motivating factor in life was always to figure out what's it all about, deeper experiences, learn really about myself. And I think if more people did that, and I'm not saying my path, we're all on our own individual path, but I'm not saying my path is better than anyone else's, but I think more people, instead of being so focused on this, need to be more focused on this and just learning about yourself and taking that deep journey within.
I find it interesting you pointed at your heart, not your head.
Yeah, not here, because this is nuts. This is everything.
Alan Watts said, "The mind is a great servant, but a horrible master."
It so is.
It is so true.
The mind is a power tool. If it can be used correctly, you can screw in a lot of holes with that Rex Goliath. But no. But the point is, I could go down a tangent on that. I wanted to get back to, we were talking about God. And I want to know
Talk about a concept to put in a box. Woo!
I want to know, what is God? We get deep here on Wine and Wisdom, baby.
Do you have a gong? If we could just hit the gong like Alan
God.
Watts would do. That's God.
Somebody
it's sound.
One of you listeners out there, if you want to donate or put a logo, whatever brand you have, we'll put a gong right here. And
Genius.
I will hit that thing every time. I love that.
Genius.
I love it. Let's get on that.
Hit a gong every time what?
I don't know. Every time there's that moment of eureka or a big question.
That's a great idea.
I think that's it.
It's like It's a Wonderful Life. Every time a bell rings, an angel gets her wings.
We can't cover up this, but we'll figure out a spot. Gong, baby. So, what's God?
So your questions are asking me individually, what is God?
Yeah.
I don't have that.
If somebody, here's the way I look at it with this show, Melissa. If somebody's just hopping on and it's and then they want to know your wise insight on something. So that thing is, and it could be whatever the hell it is to you. It doesn't matter. Like, if you hear the term God, what immediately in your mind springs forth?
Whew. Well, now, when I hear that now, my analytical mind wants to put it in boxes of what it is not, or what I've viewed God as in the past. But now I think, because I'm living a little bit more of a heart-centered life, I don't conceptualize that word anymore.
Yeah.
I just, to me, and this is going to sound so cheesy, but I really don't give a fuck. It's so basic. It's such a basic thing.
Yeah.
Like the Christian Bible touches on the God being love.
Yeah.
God is love. And to me, as far as energy is concerned, I do know that when I make decisions based on that alone, and we can even get into that discussion. You go, what is God and what is love? Because those are two things.
That's a question on here.
Two things that we cannot define as humans. It can only be fucking felt.
Yes.
And the language, and as far as the English language is concerned, I don't know that there's enough proper terminology to even explain it.
No.
So God, when I hear the word God, I guess it depends on who's asking and what their views are and how offended they're going to be by what I say. Or, you know what? Here it is. Just like love, how I view love and how I view God, it isn't literally an ever-evolving concept in my mind, because the second you put it in a box, it changes. Correct. The second you put yourself in a box, it changes. The second you put love in a box, it changes. When you think that you don't think, like, if you truly are on fire and love let's say a person, let's say you love a person and you just can fucking feel it set you on fire, what do you do with that? Yeah. Run away or run in to it, lean into it. So as far as God is concerned, to me, what is God? It's like, sometimes God to me is gravity. Sometimes God is what keeps me grounded from me trying to ascend to not being here. So sometimes God's grounding or gravity. Sometimes God shows up as compassion or an act. To define it is, for me, is impossible.
Yes.
I could give you I could write pages and pages on experiences I've had with God, and some things that I cannot explain, which has given me a faith, because I was really teetering on putting myself in this box of atheism, which I hate. I hate labels.
Atheism is just another religion anyway.
I literally hate. It's so hard for me. I can't even be defined by a concept or. I think this is why I've struggled with finding my tribe. I don't know that it exists. For me, it's just like do you ever wake up one day and you're literally nothing like you were yesterday? Your heart is the same. You will treat
every
people
day.
the same. Yes. It's like, how do you put yourself in a fucking box of a label? Yes, I was an atheist for like 2 hours. Right. You know what I mean?
Tomorrow I'll be a Buddhist, the next day a Hindu.
The next day my mind is blown.
Yeah.
Every day my mind is blown. And you know what? You know, the experiences, I used to love having my mind blown wide open, but the experiences that I've been drawn to lately is having my heart cracked wide open. And it's so painful, but it is so glorious at the same time.
Oh, totally.
So for me, God is where you are so on fire for whatever it is, and synonymous with love. And those are the only terms that I know how to describe it, because those are terms that were given to me. Because I don't know. I don't know. I don't know shit. Shit. I don't know anything.
I agree. We could, our finite minds can only grasp so much. I just want to convey that, like, the standardized, Orthodox Christian view of God is just so limiting, that
it's like a set of rules,
right,
with a beard.
Exactly.
And judgment and condemnation for decisions. That's how I grew up.
And anything that's
what I learned growing up.
Any religion that's like motivated by guilt.
Oh my God, living with guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Whew.
But yes.
That motivates most religions.
Yeah. So Yes, the term
keep
God is.
leaning
No,
into
you're good.
the
You should. It's as long as you're here, you should
Very
be cool.
powerful.
It is. But yeah, it's such an open, broad term, and we could literally spend podcast upon podcast talking about it. But I just wanted to little touch things. One thing that you mentioned, you said, I think, acts of service, compassion, all that. I actually just recently watched a documentary about South Africa and the apartheid, right?
What exactly? What part of the Southern Africa?
No, apartheid. Are you familiar with apartheid?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
South Africa.
Yes.
The country of South Africa, apartheid. It was a
Okay.
documentary about that.
Okay.
And really, this part has nothing to do with that, but it speaks about the poverty of the region. So outside of Johannesburg, the capital of South Africa, there's just extreme poverty because, with apartheid, it's basically legalized racism. If you're not familiar with it, look up apartheid in South Africa. It's one of the darkest chapters in human history. It's absolutely disgusting. That being said, there's light in the darkness that comes from that. So there was a woman, I can't remember her name, it's going to bother me, but a woman who started essentially kind of an orphanage for the people in for this community in South Africa, because also one in I don't know the numbers anymore. It used to be like 1 in 10 people in South Africa had AIDS.
That's really high.
Yeah. At least I know that's what it was maybe 15, 20 years ago. I don't know what it is because that's when the documentary was. I think that's what they said.
Wasn't that like the men would leave their tribes to go into the cities to get work and bring it back?
What?
AIDS.
Oh, yeah, potentially. I'm sure that was part of it. But
Yeah.
Because of AIDS, that so many kids were orphaned.
I just remember reading something about that specifically,
Okay.
but it's been so long,
Yeah,
so I don't want to
yeah.
confuse
Well,
facts.
so many kids were orphaned because of this.
Yes.
So this woman, she set up this orphanage, and basically it was this center in the community where people could just come and get food, and she would help take care of kids and all that stuff. And she would, she would go to like dumpsters and get food that was discarded. Like she would get all these donations and stuff like that. And she would feed 500 people every day. And I'm watching this guy interview her, and just the humility. I mean, she's saving lives every day, like no doubt about it. And he goes like, you're a saint and all this stuff. And she's like, no, she's like, I'm just doing, She goes, what was her quote? It's something to the effect of like, I'm just trying to help ease some suffering, And so when I saw that, I mean, I was definitely, I was crying, and I was so like, it was hitting me in I mean, when you see a child that's like we're talking 5 or 6 years old, right? No parents, and he's like eating, this food. He's just so happy to just have food from this woman who's giving up her heart. I'm like, that right there is God. That right there is truth, And it's just, this woman is just, and she loves every second of it. And she's just giving her life to help others. That to me is God. So when you say the acts of compassion and all that, man, that reminded me of that story of just watching it this past weekend.
That's interesting that you bring that up too, because there was a time in my, I will never end the path of searching and seeking because I was born with questions.
Yeah.
I was born with why. I've always been labeled as nosy.
That's why I'm with you. That's why I have this podcast.
You're so nosy. I'm like, no, I'm just fucking curious.
Yeah.
Like, why is that an issue?
Yeah.
But during my time of seeking, I was going to the chapel. In Green, the one in Green.
Okay.
And I was
it's the same one that's affiliated with the one in Akron?
the same one. But I was breaking away from a little bit more of a dogmatic approach to Christianity. So I was in my mind, evolving with a little bit more freedom in my thinking. And I was going to this church, and the preacher, whatever.
Father.
No.
No, I'm kidding.
For sure, no. The preacher was talking about this women's group that they had there called The Well, and the women would meet on Wednesday evenings, kind of like a Bible study.
Yeah.
But The Well was a group of women that they would raise money to fund wells for these specific areas in Southern Africa. to help irrigate their lands and help them have water, because these women were walking, I don't even know how many miles, like a day's worth of walking to get water, and half of them would be eaten by alligators like on their way back.
Yeah.
So the well, that was their whole purpose. And I remember like watching this video of all of these people volunteering to go to Africa, and they had to get all these like vaccinations, and they'd have like these 10-day trips. And I remember my heart just like swelling for some kind of journey like that. But my children were small at the time, so my duty was here.
Yeah.
But now it's like when I hear that this kind of stuff is going on, especially with my background with children, like my education and having a preschool and the amount of work I've done with children and how alive I feel being around them. What you just said reminded me of the well and what the chapel was doing for the well, or for these people, and not just going, because I've known Christian organizations where they travel to these places and just fucking drop off Bibles. Like, that's really going to do you a lot of good. But they were helping them irrigate their lands and grow food and, actually doing something for their ability to survive.
Right.
I don't remember, like, exactly what my point is.
No,
but what you're saying, God, it's like almost like a feeling. It's like what lights you on fire. And when you talk about the children, especially at that age, 5 or 6, developmentally, 5 or 6-year-olds are, I mean, I know what we do with 5 or 6-year-olds in the United States. We conform, make them conform. But 5 or 6
Obey.
5 or 6, especially like that kindergarten age, is literally the most beautiful age I've witnessed in children. I've raised 2, and I've helped raise a lot more.
Sure.
In my preschool, and that age was always my favorite. They are like right in this point of self-discovery. And it's funny because I've read some studies about epigenetics, and Dr. Bruce Lipton actually, and I read about how as a child develops, I learned a lot about early childhood development in my education before having a preschool. But that was more like developmental, like what they needed at that age. And it was more of a state standard of what the state deemed that they needed. But when you talk about the brain or the mind, and you talk about the subconscious mind, up until about age 6, the subconscious mind acts as like a tape recorder. And it's literally absorbing its environment and recording and recording. And guess what happens around age 6? Press play. Yeah. And they just start repeating shit. Yeah. The stuff and it makes so much sense. Sure. So for me, that age it's like crucial. I know what I'm getting at. Nurture is another thing that I would put in the God box definition.
We're next podcast. I'm gonna have a box right here. I'm gonna put Sharpie, God, and we're just gonna put stuff.
Let's put that in the God box.
Yeah. I love that.
Nurture. I swear to God, when I had my son, when I had Jack, I was 21 when I got pregnant with him. And I turned 22 a month after he was born. He was born April 21st, 2000, and I turned 22 May 31st, 2000. And I swear to God, if it was not for that child, having that child, I would have, I don't know, drank myself to death. I was on such a fast trajectory because I've always been that way where I process things really quick in my mind and process concepts and go with them. I could never ground or stay. And I have plenty of theories of why, but it doesn't matter. When I had Jack, that was one of my first experiences of giving or feeling unconditional love. I received it from my grandmother, my mom's mom, but having Jack was literally God. Yeah. That was God to me. How I felt, how I could overcome anything for that boy. Anything. Sure. I would have, and the fact that he completely disrupted the cycle or the trajectory of my life that I was on. And I never fucking wanted kids. Right. Never. I was like, are you kidding? That's the opposite of freedom. Yeah. And then I had this child that just totally turned my world upside down. And I was like, I would never change this. Not in a million years. Never. I mean, my son introduced me to unconditional love. My grandmother, yes, but this is different. This is having the ability to give it. Receiving is one thing, giving is another. It's just like, and they're both vital. They're both so necessary.
Yeah. Sure.
But when I look at my son, even, and he's 20 now, but it doesn't matter. Having that experience, and again, putting it in the God container or the love container, it's what lights you on fire.
Sure.
What would you do or not do for that?
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
I don't even want to call it a feeling or an emotion. It's what would you do? And that's the other thing too that I've kind of grappled with is containing. And we've always tried to contain God or contain love through marriage or through whatever, putting it in this container to keep and carry it around like it's a goddamn badge of honor. You can't keep it.
No.
It's a literal flow. Like that's my motto lately. Like you read all these like self-help things or ways to improve your life, and it's always goal oriented. For me, I am so flow oriented right now.
Oh yeah.
Like
I'm with you.
Flow. What is your day like? What is going through your mind and your heart when you wake up in the morning? What matters to you? How do you fucking know if you don't fucking slow down and figure it out? How do you know? Our culture is designed to shut you the fuck up. You don't figure it out.
You're right.
I'm not saying it's designed that way. I shouldn't say that because I don't think that's how it works. I shouldn't say that because I believe you have way more power in reflecting what that is. So I don't mean to say it like that, but what we believe to be what is true or reality as we grow up.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. You brought up 3 things with 3 points in my mind that I want to branch off of. Number 1, I heard, God, love being stated as, the ever experienceable vastness of our being, meaning it's not a thing, it's not a word, because what are words at the end of the day anyway? Symbols for stuff. So it's an ever experienceable vastness of our being, right? I think that's
okay. I need a minute. Hold on. Can you do that again?
Ever experienceable vastness of our being.
You said God is.
Yeah, that could be what God could be defined
Let's
as
slow down
in another.
And do that one more time.
Ever experienceable vastness of our own being.
I just think it's important to take a second with that one.
Absolutely,
I think it's important to take a second with that one.
I just don't want to spend too many seconds on it.
I'm just absorbing.
I'm going to leave you with that.
I'm absorbing.
I want you to.
I'm giving everyone a chance.
I want you to ruruminate on that.
Okay, go on.
I want you to ruminate on. That's the great thing about podcasts is guess what? You guys can listen to this back. You can watch it back. Okay. Because there's a million things I want to get to, and I just wanted to throw that nugget out there. She's eating it like a 7-course meal now. But no. So that's just something to think about. We can come back to. We can circle back to that if we have time.
It's fine.
I
just wanted to illuminate it. I wanted to put some neon lights around it, and I wanted to make sure that it was noticed.
You put the
and you put
back it up here.
You put it very well, and I think it should even be in print a little bit. Maybe write it down, and I just think it should be something that gravity. Just take a minute and absorb that concept because there are things that you feel, and I understand that, but when you put a language behind it, it's worth.
You put it in a box. So another thing is. Machiavelli, he said, and this is to circle back to religion, he said that religion should not be evaluated for its truth content, but for its effect on society. And that's something I've always been like, because think about it. Did this dude actually get eaten by a whale? Did this, did this chick eat this apple? Like, all these are allegories, right? They're metaphors and stories for greater things.
They're beautiful when you see them for what they are.
But the thing that makes me mad are people that are anti-religion that are like, how can you believe that nonsense? Like, that people like you talk about atheists that are
super
hardcore,
analytical,
that worship the rational mind, the ego, like which I want to touch on here in a second.
Ooh,
gosh. The
ego.
We'll get there. Hold on a second. We get to this point. Whatever. It doesn't matter how true or not true that is. What matters is obviously the story behind it and getting to God, whatever you define that as. But when I see these tremendous acts of service that these people that are affiliated with some of these religions, I'm blown away. Yeah, I may think their faith is a bit askew because of how narrow it is. But that's irrelevant because look at what they're doing.
God in action.
Right.
That's like a Buddhist way of thinking, though. Because
look at how they're enhancing their community. Look at how they're ultimately enhancing themselves through that service. So it's like, who are we to judge? So when he says it should be evaluated for its effect on society, it's like, man, Like, these religions bring a lot of good. Sure, there's been more wars than anything that's been started by religion. The Crusades for hundreds of years. How many people have died in the name of religion? Sure. But when you look at from the basis of what it can do to a community and push aside the truth, because that's what seems to divide us. If you look at
dogma is divided.
Correct. If you look at every religion has the same shit, has the same stuff, right? It's basically a vehicle to get you from one island to the other, But don't look at this vehicle right here, this boat. This is where it's at.
It's the only one.
This is the only one. Y'all are gonna sink.
The rest of you are going straight to the bottom of the ocean.
It's like, hey, I dig it. That boat.
Congratulations on being on the right one.
I'm glad you made it. Yeah, I'm glad you made it. We're all gonna find out at the other end. Have fun.
Yeah.
And then so next topic I want to get into is culture and ego, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Is how our culture, specifically in the U.S., but really Western, culture in general. We're a culture it's all about gratification through external agents, external things. It's about controlling the environment, mastery over shit, over stuff. We put the ego on this pedestal, like ego is God, the rational mind is God, and we create our own personal heaven and paradise to worship it. It's about how much stuff can I get, how much shit can I get to serve this ego, and I look, and we've had discussions about like Native American culture and stuff. I think you have some Cherokee. All right, I got that right, but if you contrast that with, like, for instance, like the Hopi Indians and really any, most Native Americans, but that's one that is sticking to the forefront of my mind, is they'll send their young males, adolescent males, out into the wilderness for, weeks, months, maybe sometimes. And what do they call that? Is it a vision quest? Or I might be thinking of something else. But anyways, they go out there, and what do they send them out there for? It's not to, like, let me build a house. Let me get my Roth IRA and let me get this car and get a wife. And all. It's not what that's about. They send them out into the wilderness so that they can attune to it and they can get quiet and that they can ultimately be one with the environment and ultimately learn about themselves. Whereas if you look at us, the culture that came in and kicked them out, gave them smallpox and put a boot in their ass, we're like, hey, that's not the way to do it, because guess what? You need to control this environment. It's all about getting resources. The earth is made for us so we can conquer it, right? So I feel like, God, they had it right. Becoming one with the environment and learning how to live in balance and harmony with it, to me, that's the true way to live. And as I get older, it's not so much about like what can I accomplish, how I can feed my ego, because that's all our culture is. Our culture is all about making a name for myself, right? Isn't it? Isn't that it? You go to family gatherings. Put your name in lights. Yeah. You go to gatherings.
In some sense.
And people are like, well, how's Jimmy doing? Well, he's sure making a name for himself, isn't he? Like he's an attorney. He's got a house, and it's like, that's great. If that's your God, cool, awesome. But we're just so fetishized with the ego, and
not only that, but there's such a level of dissatisfaction with that. Whether you meet that dissatisfaction with yourself or not, it's totally there.
And I think it's ultimately an empty pursuit, right?
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
it's hard to find your place in a world or a culture that is not your truth.
Well, that's one thing. Like, obviously, you have to honor where our incarnation, right? You have to honor where you were born, how you were born, the culture you're in, all that shit. And I'm not saying that, but like that's why, personally, for me, that's why I've always felt like I was. You mentioned, your tribe, and I see how we're circling back to Native Americans, but it's almost like I felt like I was born in a different culture. I've never really been like one that is all about the American dream. And we can get into that. Like George Carlin said, the reason it's called the American dream is because you have to be asleep to
Fucking
believing it.
truth teller right there.
Yeah.
Cheers to that, but I'm on empty.
Oh,
if you don't mind.
Well, let's take a quick.
Let's take a 47-pound break.
Wow, so I guess my question.
Where are we on time? This is like...
This has been rolling by, but
Yeah.
we're good. We'll go to the lights turn off, I guess. And there goes Rex. He's out of here. Throw that. But no, what do you think about the ego? I know, again, a loaded question. But...
Well, if I answer, it would be my ego, probably.
And that's another thing.
Cheers to that.
You have to.
The ego. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, let me try here, and you can circle me back when I get off course because I will.
I may have to if I kind of give you this look like. Then I'll just kind of push. I'll give you.
I just want to make sure that I'm answering what you're asking.
No, I mean it's just discussion.
Okay,
so
here's the thing. This is a very delicate topic, and this is why. When you start talking about the ego, and you start addressing the ego, it's important that you take a trauma-informed approach to what you're saying, and it isn't because. I just want to make sure that I say this properly because words are helpful and damaging at the same time. If you dive really deep into the spiritual world, you will find an idea that the ego is bad and that it needs to die. If you dive into a more analytical approach in the psychology world, you will find that it's vital to have a healthy ego. And neither one of them are wrong.
Yep.
Because a healthy ego means that you can survive on this planet that we're living on. And duh, like those are super basic things. But if you dive into the spiritual world like I did because you're traumatized and people are telling you that your ego needs to die, you automatically start thinking there's another thing wrong with you.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the ego, to me, I feel like it's a form of identity. And it's important to have a strong one. And I feel like it's important to have a strong foundation. So when we talk about the ego, I think it's important to look at it through many lenses, not just one. And I think when you talk about the ego, I think it's important to understand who the fuck you're asking. First of all, if this is somebody who's been through some horrific things in their life, it's important for them to have an identity. They may have no fucking clue who they are. They are just a puppeteer, like a puppet. They're performing for whoever it is, defining them in their experience. But I think it's important to understand once you've had the ability to strengthen your ego, you understand the concept behind the death. It isn't about losing an identity. It's about embracing who the fuck you truly are. It's beautiful. It's a concept beyond the ego. The ego is like, oh God, I don't even want to use this word, but I'm going to for lack of a better one. It's like your avatar. It's your ego is who you're playing right now. Like if you believe in reincarnation or I don't even like that word, the spirit recycling itself. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's a concept I won't ever grasp on this planet. But what is the ego? Find your fucking place. What is your place? Who are you? And once you get to the core of who you are and you understand how infinite you actually are, then you can create your ego. Yes. The ego doesn't create you. It should not run you. You decide.
I agree.
What is the experience you want to have? It's not about look at me, here I am. It's about I don't have the words. I think you understand with everything I just said.
What I was going to say too is, you have to become nobody to be anybody, but you have to be somebody first in order to become nobody. So record that.
That's right? That's an Alan Watts-ism.
Really, but think about it.
It's just I totally yeah. No, I understand you. Okay. I understand exactly what you just said. And that's the thing is you have
to have a strong
You need an identity.
Ego
yes.
In order to let that shit go.
I think we need a new word. Like I think the English language needs a new word because limiting. They're not the same concept.
And a lot of Eastern cultures have words that don't even translate. into English
Oh,
because
yeah. We're so limited.
and they have, well, speaking of limited, and this was about the culture thing. While us in the West were busy planting our flags,
doing,
conquering,
yeah, action,
right? We had great maps of the world to conquer, like, oh, let's go to the North Pole, India, right? Which is America, right? And it was all about discovery and how there's resources that we can go, again, getting back to all about external. Whereas the East, they had tremendous maps, but they had tremendous maps of inside and traversing that terrain. And that's why there was such an influx, in that vulnerable time in the 60s of, Westerners going to the East because they were so fucking fed up with the culture. And especially with the Vietnam War really pushing that to the forefront, it was like, we need to find some meaning. A lot of them went just to get high, however you want to define high is.
Yeah.
But
ascension.
But they
let's race towards our death.
But they
that's the ultimate ascension is death.
But they wanted to get answers, and they found that there's in the East they had these great maps because they went within while we in the West were looking without.
Perhaps the bridge to the two of them is God.
There you go. And that's what we've been talking about is the same thing with ego. Like, you have to have a good, obviously if you weren't somebody, if you didn't feed the ego, and I've also heard the term that there's like blue babies that are babies that just don't have the will to live. Like, they don't want to eat, they don't want to breathe. I'm not too familiarized with it, but from a spiritual context, I've heard that.
Interesting.
And that's like.
I've only known of indigo children. I don't know.
Well, it might be the same thing. I don't know.
Indigo children are like gifted.
Never
in my mind, they'd be like
I'm
autistic.
thinking just in a different shade of blue. But blue babies, they just have no will to live.
That's like no breath.
Well,
being blue is no breath.
Right, because they die. So it's like there's just no ego there at all. Whereas, like, obviously we need an ego to ensure our survival. And I think when you can bridge the East and the West together is really where you get it. And where if you develop a strong sense of ego and be like, yeah, okay, I get it, that's when you can rationalize the putting and letting go of it. I want to touch on another thing. You mentioned trauma. And we don't have to get personal about any trauma and all that stuff. But my question, first, I'll kind of say my point. Do you think if more people, instead of repressing their trauma, that if they traced the scars and I don't know, what's a better word? I can't think of a better term for this, but if they came to terms with their trauma, they understand it, they let it breathe, let it live through them, that we would have a less violent, anxious society?
Yes.
Now, there's a simple answer, but because I totally think that's one of the biggest issues, especially with men, is we're taught to be repressed and strong and all that stuff, but it's like and it's really becoming apparent too with how divided our country is, that if you're seen as a liberal snowflake, you're weak and all that, whereas like the other end of the spectrum, the tough gun-toting male, that's where masculinity is. But I've always viewed it as, if you can fully feel and express your emotions as a full functioning human being, that's true strength, not repressing it. So I think that especially men need to learn how, and again, I'm thankful that my mom, I grew up in what I call a matriarchal society, because my mom had 6 sisters.
I've met your
brother.
Mother. She's badass.
A big Italian family.
Yeah.
Right? Bunch of Italian women. And I have mostly female cousins. I have a couple, male cousins. But the point is, I was raised by pretty much women. My parents got divorced, and that's a whole other thing. But so I feel like men, if they came to better terms with being able to express their emotions and dealing with their trauma instead of repressing it, that we wouldn't have these such violent outpourings in society, and we would have I would think we would have a more harmonious society as a result. So, trauma. How has it? Because I know you mentioned to me writing a book about trauma. And it's trauma made me do it, or something like that. Is that what it was? just touch on it. You can get as deep or as surface as you want with this. But how has trauma impacted you?
So as far as the book that we discussed and me coming up with the title and me entrusting you with the name of the title, I think I told maybe 2 people of what it might be called. I feel blessed. And we've told everybody.
I can edit that out.
No,
I can edit that out.
Not an issue. If somebody uses that title, we have proof that it's mine.
You're probably like, God, I fucked up. You probably were like,
oh God, no,
shit,
not at all.
Matt,
no, listen.
Idiot. So I
told you not to hold back. I did. I told you.
Right,
I'm in a vulnerable state in my mind. No, this is all
let
okay.
me know afterwards if I'll just go, the book called, like it'll beep out.
I'm being honest right now. No, it's fine.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I actually wanted to, when we had that discussion, I was in this frame of mind of reframing trauma. Because I think that word is such a buzzword and it's even a moneymaker now. My idea of a book about my trauma was basically like making a joke about the title was The Trauma Made Me Do It. Like the devil made me do it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I thought it was really cool that came to me in a meditation. It was bizarre. And I just wrote it down real quick. And I'm like, oh, this could be a title of my book. And then I was like, whatever. Like every time I have some epiphany, I'll absorb it as the epiphany and then I let it go.
Yeah.
Because my ego wants to handle it. And then I let it go. And that's how I've lived my life. And it's not the most glorious existence to let all those things go because I know who I am, so I know how far I can take something. So if I wanted to take it to the, degree and just promote the shit out of this concept, that I would if I wanted to. And I'm going to stop referring to it like that because it just gives me this feeling like, the elf in Lord of the Rings when Frodo tried to hand her the ring, Cate Blanchett's character, and she was like, oh, and then she's like, I passed the test. I have that moment a lot.
Galadriel.
My ego is like, we could do all of these things, and then I come back to myself and I'm like, fucking for what? 5 minutes? Cool, I had an orgasm. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that makes sense?
Absolutely.
But what you asked me, the trauma made me do it. My idea was, okay, and I'm going to be very careful here, but I'm going to be super honest. I wanted to make fun of trauma, but not make fun of the pain or what other people do to you or what caused what your trauma was, but to reframe it in a sense, because my subtitle to that was, and the dumb shit that I did.
That's great.
Like the trauma made me do it, and like the dumb shit I did, and it was never about.
So you're deflecting blame, but also bringing it back, onto yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it was like the trauma made me do this, but it was like acknowledging the fact that my mind was caught in this loop of bullshit, and then acknowledging it on the other side that you don't have to fucking frame your life based on what has happened to you.
Yeah.
And then I thought, writing my own personal experience, and you know what, Matt, I came up with that title, what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago? It's been a while. It's been a while, and I wrote it in a notebook. I have notebooks with shit in them all over my home, and every time I go to like pick up a concept, I will chew it up, spit it out, and lay it down. I never have this drive to take a concept and make it tangible because I always check myself before I do it. Yeah. And then I always arrive at the same place, like, well, what is the purpose behind this? What is the purpose behind this? And now that I'm in a point in my life where any kind of purpose or satisfaction I get out of how I spend my time comes from this reciprocal energy of helping other people. And it is not blindly behind some concept of Christianity or a concept of needing to be a good person. It's the concept of exchanging energy, and that's how the universe works. You are helping others because you're helping yourself. It is a reciprocal love. It's not different. It's not separate from... You understand what I'm saying. No, but trauma, you asked me about trauma.
Yeah.
I don't want to discount it in any way. And that is why I never took the concept and ran with it, because I'm not about doing more harm than good. But I'm also not that good that I'm going to do some great good, if that makes sense.
Complete.
Yeah. So I thought I jumped on this bandwagon of telling my story as if it was going to be some like opening
Yeah.
to something else.
Right.
And that's kind of what this interview represented to me, was just being seen, and maybe something that came out of it would be helpful to somebody else. And that was so pure that I was okay with it, because I don't like to talk a lot.
Right.
If I connect with someone, it's different.
Yeah.
We can exchange
Sure.
stories and, let this energy keep going. It's like a high,
Oh, yeah.
just like keep it going. Let's keep it going. It's like, but for me, especially now, introspection, I would rather just stay inside. And I'm frustrated now because I'm like, I keep looking for this aha moment or this aha purpose or this aha defining thing.
Yeah.
I'm in a waiting period. So I'm not saying it's not coming, and I'm not saying it is. I need to be okay with like total self-acceptance with just being and loving myself through not producing to earn it. And trauma, I just, the only thing that here, I'll circle back to your question. The only thing that I would have to offer as far as trauma is concerned is my own story.
Yeah.
And if I need to tell my story for the sake of just telling my story, it serves no purpose. But if my story would be somehow beneficial to others, it would be worth telling.
And it is. Like,
see, that's the thing. I've been waiting for not external validation for that, but I've been waiting for myself to come to that.
Gotcha.
To come to the fact that this is not about you and it's not about others. There's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference. And self-expression or art or creativity, I went through this phase where, I thought all artists were pompous. Like, yay for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And there are some that are like that are just like, look what I made. And it's like, fuck you.
You puked on a canvas.
Congratulations.
You took a dump on a canvas.
But
Good
when
for you.
somebody
Yeah, I gotcha.
purely expresses emotion through their art, it's like, how can you not just stand back in awe? There's no opinion to be had. It's just, it is.
However you want to define art,
It
too.
is.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just is. So is the book. I've not let that go because I really truly think writing is in my like it's part of my path, and it's a discipline that I have not cultivated because I'll go to write something and it still feels like a performance and I put it down. And until it feels like a flow, I'm not fucking interested.
I feel that.
Because until the external reflects the healing I've done internally, I'm not fucking interested.
Yeah.
Because then it's just resistance or pushing. And I don't have the energy for either. Because neither one is being. Like when I go to sit down and write this, I'll probably, go down to Tennessee to my great uncle's house where there's nothing and nowhere and just let it come out of my hand. And then it's done. I have no interest in making a profit. I do, but I don't, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I have no interest in, this is what I talk about when I teach yoga, when I guide yoga classes. I always tell my students, if this does not satisfy your body, do not do it. It's not about liking or not liking. It's not about shredding your muscle fibers. It is not about pushing your mind to its, its limits. It is about focus and concentration, but it's not. If it does not fucking satisfy you, why are you, change it? Like, you have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to yourself. And that's why I've tried to put teaching yoga down. The concept of teaching yoga, I put it over here. Like, I have nothing to offer. It's not about that. It's about helping someone to themselves. It's never about me. And when I get in my own way, I put it down. I just continue to put it down and put it down and put it down until I get to a point where there's no distinction between me and others.
Yes.
And that's where I'm at right now. It's like
I
don't want it to be about Melissa Tompkins, but I do, but I don't.
God, there's so many. This podcast. See, I should have it be 5 hours because there's so many things I want to jump off of, but there's so many questions I want to get to.
I really have to pee.
I can pause it. You need to pause it? I'll pause it.
I mean,
Go pee.
When it starts to affect my ability to focus.
We're going to have to change course. We're going to have to
You asked me a question and
change lanes here.
There's so many.
No, I get it.
I understand what you're asking, and
I love it.
Sometimes it's.
I love it. You're not holding back.
I have to be truthful to, what comes up when you ask versus what others might want to hear or what I want to get across. It's not about either. It's not about what I want to.
All it is about truth.
Yes.
And the truth right now is you got to
pee.
So I'm going to pause it. So
we're out of wine.
You voided your urine and we're good to go. So COVID, how has it changed you? I know we've exchanged texts. I told you I was changing lanes here. I'm pulling out right in front of you.
It's fine.
Because we've exchanged texts about this, and you said, like, you don't have to give too much detail, but just how has it changed you, if it has?
Oh, God. So, if, you said, okay. If it were, if I were to sum it up, I'll give you an analogy. COVID was the brick wall that I kept avoiding running into. And when I was diagnosed with COVID-19, I didn't really feel that different. I had some symptoms, but they weren't crazy. I've always had a pretty strong immunity, so I wasn't super concerned about it, the virus itself. And I stayed away from, a lot of information about what it could do and the symptoms other people were having because I don't care. I mean, I do, but you know what I mean? For me, myself, I wasn't going to feed myself with a bunch of negativity about what could happen to me because it's not in my control at that point. I was diagnosed with COVID. And my first symptom was loss of taste. So, which is funny. But I only got the test because the person that I work for or that I drive for insisted, and I'm in and out of hospitals a lot, so it was a responsible thing to do. I got the test. My doctor did not think I had it, and the test came back positive, and she's like, you have it. And so I quarantined myself ultimately for other people because I was fine. Like, I could have gone about my daily business. I lost 2 weeks of work and couldn't see my children, which sucked. But how it changed my life, it was the brick wall that I kept avoiding and I finally let myself run into. And learned a lot about self-care. And it's not that I didn't know anything about self-care before, but self-care for me and what that looked like, because there's so many definitions of what it could be, being an Epsom salt bath or meditation or taking a walk or what the fuck ever everyone else has to say about self-care. It's such an individualized thing. And sometimes for me, self-care for me when I was quarantined was 3 days of just letting my mind run. And I didn't attach myself to it. It was just watching it happen and just being amazed by how much I could process in such a short amount of time. It was just like just a complete witness. I was a witness to myself for 14 days, and it was gorgeous. It's like childbirth. When you're pregnant, every mother wants to give you their fucking story on what it's going to be like to birth a baby. And most of them are negative and how painful it is. Both of my childbirths were the most amazing experiences I've ever had. And I can't stand being in a medical facility, whether it's a dentist or a doctor. I get high anxiety when someone else is administering pain to me and it's not happening naturally. But childbirth was something that happens naturally to you and you just have to go through it. Yeah. And so as far as COVID was concerned, I actually fucking gave myself permission to do nothing.
And it was wonderful, right?
Oh my God. I don't want it to be over. I'm still not ready for it to be over. How it's changed me though is really, I'm not going to say that the physical illness didn't have effect on me because I used to approach everything from an analytical You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now, and then I segued to everything is spiritual. And now I look at things through the lens of like this whole perspective where spiritually COVID represents something else to me than just a virus. I know what it is scientifically. I get it. But integrating the two things was an interesting experience because I had no excuses. Like I couldn't escape. I couldn't go anywhere. And I've been asking the universe, I think, for this experience for so long. When I watched everyone quarantine in March, I'm like, you lucky fuckers. Like, I can't do this. You know, I'm healthy. Like, I can't quarantine. Yeah. But COVID-19 was like my permission to everybody in my world to just fuck off.
Love it.
I love my kids and my parents and
fuck off.
And yes, everybody fuck off.
Love
like
it.
Fuck off. Literally fuck off. And for me it was like validation for everything that I never gave myself permission to process. And I love ripping off Band-Aids. I've never been one to draw shit out. Like rip it off, deal with it, see it for what it is, and move on. And you evolve from it.
You learn.
Yeah, so that was what COVID was like for me. It was like like the universe handing me a gift. It was like, here you go. Here's a 2-week pause. And 8 or 9 days was me fighting this internal battle of wanting to be productive and refusing to do it. And not finding my worth in anything external. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to watch movies all goddamn day. I'm going to watch Doctor Strange on repeat 3 times and listen to The Wise One until I get it. You know, it was you don't have to here's the thing I think that could sum up our entire conversation. Just being and existing is such a fucking miracle that we'll never wrap our minds around, that we don't have the answer to. And individually, only thing I can do is give you my experience of my tiny little corner of the existence. So COVID-19 gave me permission to try to find this path of navigation for myself. And I'm still on it. There's still lots of obstacles on my path, but it's getting clearer as I realize that those obstacles are just perceptions, levels of perception. They're never really there. Yeah. It's just the lens I'm looking through. So COVID-19 gave me permission to tell everyone to fuck off. If that makes sense.
I love it.
I remember connecting with you when you were quarantining at the beginning of the pandemic, and I just remember being so envious of you sprouting in jars and the shit you were doing, and I'm like, I want pieces of you right now.
Define, when people are like, Matt's sprouting in jars. Let's define
sprouting like alfalfa sprouts and stuff.
I'm growing food in my jars. I'm not like, what the fuck?
I forget. We're on a wavelength here. I'm just assuming.
Yeah, I know. Like yes, exactly. There's so much that we're communicating to that not even verbal.
Yeah.
But what do you want to be when you grow up?
I don't want to grow up.
Me neither. But if you had to. Cheers. I'm out. We tapped Rex.
He's gone. Oh no.
So Rex, if you want to sponsor us, maybe I'll tag you in this. Right. It's not bad. I don't really like sweets, but I'll give that.
They have its place.
Yeah, they have its place. So, but what do you want to be when you grow up?
That's my path of discovery now.
Yeah.
It's really, and I think that there's so much pressure behind that question and defining yourself that I don't know that that's the right question to ask.
Yeah. Well,
anybody.
So. Yeah, well.
You are asking. So what do I want to be when I grow up?
And again, with all of my questions, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no opinion.
No, I understand
It's just like, I just want to learn from you. I don't care. Like, it could be, there's God, I'll let you answer.
No, it's okay. I want to constantly learn and evolve, and I don't want to put myself in a box of accomplishment that somehow I reach this place of growing up and it's over, or that there's a happily ever after, or that there's something to attain that ends it all, or this is my answer. It's just peace. Like I don't have a goal. I said it. I do not have a goal.
Love it.
I have a million goals and 0 goals.
I have
And
all
I'm going to have a
goals
shit
and
ton of
nothing
fun
goals.
pursuing whichever ones,
Amen to
you
that.
know,
Amen to
seem the
that.
most
Yeah.
appealing to me. And
Yeah.
I don't, that's one of those questions like, how are you?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know who's
Yeah.
asking.
I like it. I like asking it because I just want to see where people's mind go. Because some people go very literal,
Yeah.
and then some people go like very meta, and then some people go like that what you just went with, and I love it. To me it's just fascinating to see how people respond to the same question.
Yeah.
And
Do you ever get that though when someone's like, "How are you, Matt?" And it's like, "Well, what are you
what do
actually
you really
asking?
want?
What are you asking?"
Most of the time people say, "How
It's
are
a
you?"
formality.
It's just saying hi.
And that's okay.
It's mostly this. Hi, Matt. I don't really care how you are, but I'm just trying to be kind. I've really got shit to do and be about my day and gratify my ego. You're in the way, and I just want to get this over with. Bye. And that's really what it is, isn't it? That's why I want to do something like this, where we just push that bullshit aside.
9 out of 10 people that I would run into during the day, I never go past hello. I never ask how people are, unless I want to know the answer.
Oh, yeah.
And if I ask you how you're doing, it's because I give a fuck.
Because you care. Oh.
And if you and the answer doesn't matter. Like, it's just me holding space. Like, hey, how are you doing? It's like wonderful to see you. Like, you light up my existence for this moment. I would like to know how you're doing. It's not about instant gratification or a formality. I hate formalities. I cannot stand them. Like, if I could make a phone call without saying goodbye and just hanging up, I'd be so satisfied in my life. I'd be like, okay, this conversation is over.
Can you imagine that if we just did away with formalities and it was like ring, 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 ring? You don't even say hi. You don't. The other person doesn't say hi.
Melissa's universe, the ultimate universe.
Oh God, I'm with you.
Let's get straight to the point.
I had.
The fuck do you want?
Yeah, I had a date one time, and it went really well because we were of the same accord, and it was like, listen, I'm gonna be real with you. Like, I don't want to talk about, what do you do for a living? What is
right?
This.
What do you do for money?
Yeah.
What kind of dance
do you do? Right? Like, what's your sign?
Which
like,
dance did you choose for this life? Are you doing the tango
right.
or?
So I said, like, hey, I want to know your fears. Ooh. I want to know what you hate.
How deep have you met your trauma?
And and to me, that's like that is a barometer of whether a relationship with me will go further, because I like to think I'm somewhat, I have some depth to me, whereas if I'm gonna have a conscious relationship with another being, like we're gonna have to meet on that level. You got to be ready for this ride, or it's just not going to work.
Otherwise, it's like a feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
You're like feeding off the other person. You're gaining something from their existence, and it's so frustrating because there's always a negative balance for someone.
Yeah, and I think
and some of that's normal and natural, but
sure. And I think there are people that come into your life to teach you shit, and especially in relationships, like, okay, you're with this person for this reason. You need to attune to yourself and figure out, all right, who do I need to be with for what reason, for this purpose, and then whenever that has reached a cessation, then we can move on. That's where it gets hurtful. And you talked about, at the beginning about the heart, where the insight is gained is that breaking open. That's where you really learn about life. That's really where you ultimately learn about your truths and yourself, or when your heart gets cracked open. But last question.
Oh boy, we have another one.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Not even scared.
I'm really interested in see how you're going to tackle this one. And if you listen to last episode, you should know what this one is. If you had to go back, and we used. You ever see the movie Looper?
What is it?
Looper.
No.
I have it. It's back or somewhere. It's oh, what's his name? Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He plays this assassin, and there's time travel involved and all that stuff. And what happens? He goes out into a field with a gun, and a body, somebody pops up, and shoots him, right?
Shoots him, or
she shoots them.
Okay.
That's his job. Well, somebody pops up, and when I say body, they're actually living, I should say. Okay. He has to shoot him and kill him. Well, somebody pops up, and it's, oh my God, it's me. 20 years in the future. So it's really, you got to borrow it. It's great. So, on that note, if you had to go back, to your 20-year-old self and give one piece of wisdom to that person, what would it be and why?
I was pregnant at 20.
And it doesn't have to be 20. I'm using that
let me
as
think
just...
about that for a second.
It doesn't have to be that specific period of time. Why would you go back to a younger version of yourself? I just say 20 because whatever. It's just a good uniform number. But if you had to go back to a younger, your young self...
At 21. Okay.
Okay. Your young self and say... And grab, that person like this. Because God knows I've had those visions where I go to 20-year-old me and I grab him like this and I slam him against the wall and I say, you motherfucker. Like, this is... You need to know this. Right? What would it be? And this is your ultimate piece of wisdom. You shove it in a time capsule and it's off. Loaded question. I know. I only have the the best of the best here, Melissa. Only the full.
But the answer to that question sets like this potential to change.
Doesn't mean it's going to change the course, your trajectory as a being. Don't read too far into it. Maybe I got to change.
I already did.
Maybe I got to
within 15 seconds. My brain
maybe I
already
change the nature of my question.
I already popped it in my mouth, chewed it up.
Okay, or we could even look at it like this. What would? Because I could see how it could be interpreted as like. Because any piece of advice I wouldn't want to go back to my old self and say, don't do this and make this mistake.
Right, but any piece of advice that I would give myself as my younger self would change things.
Right. So look at it like this.
Okay.
If you had to you're on your deathbed.
Okay.
And you have every being that has ever existed or will exist is at your bedside, and they're like, oh great and wise and powerful, oracle.
I'm super uncomfortable with that.
Melissa, you are the mother of all of us. What is the one piece of wisdom you would impart upon us? Deep shit. It's so hard, isn't it? Is there just one thing that's coming to the forefront of your consciousness?
Yeah.
Let it rip.
I mean, I've in every way that I've already picked apart your question.
Yeah. I'm trying to. The key with this question is I'm trying to tie it back into the title.
The title of what?
Of the podcast.
What's our title?
Wine and Wisdom.
Oh, I see.
We drank wine. Now let's get to what is the ultimate wisdom?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard for me to even open my mouth and say the answer because it's such the concept is just not definable.
Try.
This is what I think that we'll never fully be able to explain with words, but what I've come full circle with. It's the name of my LLC, Full Circle Evolution LLC. My email, to come full circle with this concept you're going to do for the rest of your life and every phase of your life. It's like what connects the East and the West? What connects spirit and ego? What connects people to each other? What connects? What is the connection? What is the Buddhism, the middle way, the middle ground?
Yeah. What
connects your left and your right hemisphere of your brain? And when you look at things from the law of polarity or duality, it never strays from the concept of love, and understanding that loving yourself is no different than loving others, and loving others is no different than loving yourself. The only piece of advice, I don't have advice. I don't. The only thing I can offer is what I've learned. And what I've learned is if you don't have love, you have nothing. You're just noise. And you have to be just as equipped to receive it as you do to give it. And I don't know anything outside of that.
That's beautiful. I love it. And there's a lot of noise out there. But that's a heavy question. That's why if I were going to tell my younger self anything, it would be just fucking love who you are, because there's no difference in others and you. There's the only thing worth knowing is
pure acceptance and love. There isn't anything else.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that will satisfy every cell of your being.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep.
And there's no way to earn it. There's no way to gain it. There's no way to contain it. You can't hold it for yourself. That's the ultimate lesson right there. We do it in relationship. We do it in every way that we exist, is put things in containers and carry them around like badges of honor. You can't. It's a flow. It moves. You can't ever stop moving with love. It comes in and it goes out. It's just like the breath. If you're receiving, you're giving. And if you're giving, you're receiving. There's no end to that process. There's no advice that I can give that would sum that up outside of just remaining an open receptacle. I don't have any wisdom for my younger self. It's just, and honestly, I wouldn't have changed her. She was always that person that was always able to move that energy through, whether it was received well or not. And I've lived my life without it being received well in many ways. So I don't have any advice for her. She had it figured out. She just didn't know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Again, I could go on. Like, there's so many things that you mentioned there that I would build bridges off of. But we're at an hour and a half, and that was wonderful. And I feel touched by that. I'm glad you opened your heart to me. That's a beautiful thing. That's true connection. And I've always said this, that love is the most powerful thing that we can't even fathom it. We can't touch it, can't taste it, can't feel it. We know when it's there, but it's the most powerful thing that a human being can experience.
I think our language is like the poetry of love. Like it's our way of trying to decipher and explain to others or yourself, as if that's different.
Well, I feel like I got wiser. I know at least you had judging by, my auditory senses, I feel like you had a good time.
I always have a great time with you.
It's great.
You have great energy.
Oh yeah, we have good chemistry. But that was a great discussion. And I do want to say this, like, just if you're on the podcast once doesn't mean there isn't a twice.
So, I'm open.
Because especially how this went, we could breach, like, that's the great thing about this is the term wisdom is so broad.
Isn't that a Hermetic principle? Is it Hermetics? What is the who said that, like, love is equal to wisdom? It's the same thing.
Oh God.
Who said that?
Back to my philosophy 101 course.
But if you think about it, it's very like that concept feels like Play-Doh in my hands. Like I could mold
Maybe
that.
It was
like
Play-Doh.
I could. No, I mean like the actual Play-Doh. Like I could build from that. Wisdom and love are the same. Like it's a fusion, or it's nothing is separate. So it's so hard with language to even try to describe.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll have you back on, because this is just about the human experience. That's the thing. We all share it, no matter what we look like, who we worship, who we sleep with, what we do. We all are humans, and we all are connected. And I want to learn more. To my dying day, I'm trying to learn as much as I can about this experience. And I feel like this podcast, hopefully it helps you guys, hopefully it helps others, hopefully just like these topics are just conduits to deeper channels within you. That's how I learn, is I see something and it opens up just this, this cascade of things that it's like, oh my goodness, that you wouldn't think about.
I feel like you can like trust your experience through what you're feeling, like an insect would. Like just putting out feelers, and you know something is true when it resonates with your entire being. That's why I use that term in yoga classes when I say what satisfies you. Yeah. Like it's like your body's so intelligent, it knows. Your body is how you experience this reality, and it feels like, this. It's like that.
Yes.
You just know.
And
there's nothing I can tell anybody that will enlighten them.
Nope.
It's all you, baby. Mm-hmm. Like everything is internal. Like nothing. I can speak, and maybe, you know, the resonance of my voice will take you there. I don't know, but maybe something I say will resonate. Maybe
absolutely.
I'll meet you on the same plane so that I can, you know, nah.
And that's why I love movies so much, is because it's just an insight into what it means to be a human. And people say
stories, they're all just stories.
Exactly. It's just
the hero's journey.
Right. So people will say that film is about escaping your reality, and I mean, I can understand that to a certain extent, but it's
an understanding.
It's ultimately right. It's ultimately, every time you watch a movie or anything like that, piece of art, it's ultimately a mirror onto yourself, and you view your life through the lens of these characters, and the artist is opening his arms to you like this and saying, you know, welcome. This is my view of life, and this is what it means to be human. Can you feel that? Can you dig it? Like, that's what I love so much about it.
Did you ever read or watch Pride and Prejudice?
Oh, yes.
Did you watch the version with Keira Knightley?
God, I know. I've Atonement. I've seen. I don't know if I saw Pride and Prejudice.
So that's Mr. Darcy.
Maybe I
and
did.
Elizabeth Bennet.
I feel like I saw it.
Mr. Darcy is like this very affluent man, and comes across as arrogant and higher or holier than thou in a way, but he's mostly trapped by his perceived view of the world. And he meets Elizabeth Bennet, and Elizabeth Bennet's just fiery, and her family's trying to maintain their status.
Mr. Darcy, I feel like I've seen it.
Well, the pinnacle scene of that movie is him professing.
Spoiler alert.
Is him professing his love to her, and her just losing it in his face, like, you are the most pompous person. I would never even imagine myself with you. But the magnetic connection between the two of them, they're like drawing each other in. And he looks at her in like the final scene when he's professing his love to her, and he's like, he couldn't even get the words out. Like, he's like, I love you, but he couldn't get you out. And then he finally gets it out, and he's like, most ardently, and it's raining, and beautiful. It's like the fusion of like the left and the right hemisphere of the brain. It's like these two complete. It's like politics, you know, left and right and wrong and black and white and all of those things, good and evil. That bridge that neither one of them is a problem unless they're functioning on their own, and the bridge that brings them together is always this concept that we call love. And what that is, and trying to put it in an English term. But to me, that was one of the most beautiful. I've watched that so many times because when he says that to her, he's like, because the male energy is yang, it's aggressive, it's action, and yin, the female energy, is dark and not negative, dark. It's internal. It's the moon. It's the key to awakening the soul, I believe. But when he professes that to her, it's more of just a man and a woman. It's internal. It's the internal struggle of fusing every aspect of yourself. Yes, and like, that's what yoga
to full circle back.
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
Nicely done.
It's so beautiful. Thanks for listening, sticking with us, guys. I'll put it up on it should be up on the screen, but if people wanted to find out more, you know, obviously we talked about yogadenohio.com, and then if anything else you want to plug.
No, I don't have a brand. Okay. I mean, the Yoga Den is the only thing I've ever branded. Yeah. And even that, like with the dragonfly logo that I designed, like even that brand is, it just feels weird to plug anything. But it's still an entity, and it's a concept that is living right now. And the concept behind the Yoga Den, and I chose the name Den because when you think of your home, you think of your den as the place where you are truly yourself. You unwind, you don't give a shit, you put your hand in your pants if you're a guy, whatever, you totally unwind. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't care. Whatever it is that's going on in your den, you are relaxing. And when your body is relaxed, you are in your, true state. And for me, with the Yoga Den, what I heard when I started teaching yoga from a lot of people is that they would tell me that I made them feel welcome and at home. And the den represented the idea that the concept of yoga could be accessible to everyone. and that you walk in and you are at home. And if you didn't feel that, there's a problem. No matter where you come from, what your, economic status is, who you are, what you identify as, it doesn't make a difference. I don't give a fuck. You are you. Please come in. And that's what the Yoga Den represented to me. And it's a living, breathing concept, which is pretty beautiful. So if I were to plug anything, it would be the studio, but it's more of a concept of yourself. And
love it.
Welcome home.
Love it.
Welcoming yourself home to yourself.
And that's it. We're all just walking each other home. That's it.
Is that roomy?
Yeah, I believe so. But speaking of home, we're going to take this home, guys. It's been fun. Melissa, thank you. This was wonderful. I know I grew, I learned, and I appreciate you. And thank you for coming on.
I'm so grateful.
You're welcome
for
back
you.
anytime.
Thank you.
And I need a good, catchy outro. I don't have one. It changes every time. But thank you, guys. Nothing but love and peace. And we will see you next time. What's that bullshit?